So welcome all. We're pretty excited about what we have to share here today. We've got the topic we're discussing today is re-energize your digital employee experience with Microsoft Viva, and the intersection that plays there with your intranet in today's hybrid world. And we'll share some of our proven success tips and tricks at keeping your employees feel connected through a well-planned digital workplace and employee engagement strategy. And there's a and Viva will obviously take a center stage element in terms of this discussion going forward today. But overall, it's a very timely topic. Very timely topic for us, for a lot of organizations. It's been clear through the experience we've had through the pandemic that organizations are looking again at what they see in the relevance and importance around employee experience, and we'll get into a lot of details on that. We've got some fantastic speakers and panelists that we'll introduce you to in a moment and to kick off discussions. Just as a quick introduction to myself, tēnā koutou katoa, ko engare te whakaparanga. Mai, ko taranaki te maunga, ko ngā motu te whenua tupu, ko tamaki makaurau au, ke Kaipātiki in Beach Haven, North Shore, e noho ana. He Managing Director au e Engage Squared Aotearoa, ko Brian toku whānau, ko Holyoke toku whānau, ko Brian toku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. So welcome everyone, it's going to be a great session and let's get going. So really quickly, for anyone that doesn't know who we are, we're Engage Squared. We're specialists in people-friendly technology. Essentially what that means is that we help organizations adopt particularly Microsoft technology in ways that make sense for organizations to be the best that you can be. So we make sure that no matter how wonderfully unique your company might be, we'll make sure that we tailor the tech so you get the best out of it. So we're Microsoft Global Partners of the Year in 2022 as a quick plug for employee experience, which we earned off the back of our dynamic and exciting work in assisting a wide range of our customers help get the best out of their investments with Microsoft for the benefit of their employees and wider organization. All right, so introducing our speakers for today, we've got some fantastic people joining us on the call. Firstly, we've got Rachel Harnett, who is the Digital Workplace and Employee Experience Practice Lead at Engage Squared. So she's a pretty fitting person to have on today's call. So thanks for joining us, Rachel, this afternoon here in New Zealand and this morning here in Australia. We've also got Harshal Mistry, who is a modern work specialist from Microsoft, joining us. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say, Harshal, about the Viva platform and where it's going. So thanks for joining. We also have Leah Pullen, Solutions Architect from Engage Squared, who will be moderating our panel discussion and keeping us all in line. And then we've also got backstage, we've got Steph, Brian, and Claudia, and Jason from to help keep the wheels turning over. And finally, we also have all of you. So welcome and thank you very much for joining. You're gonna help add to the specialness of today, and we'll encourage you to engage in and participate, and Leah will be giving a bit more details about how you can get involved a little bit later on. So our agenda today is to first start with Harshal, run through the Viva suite current and upcoming, and then we'll dive into a panel discussion hosted by Leah, and then following by a Q&A session at the end. So so again, got a fantastic lineup, got a great agenda, and thanks for coming. So let's get stuck in. So Harshal, I'll pass over to you to get things started, if you like.
Awesome, thank you, Brian. Let me just take control of that one and quickly just flick through to my slide. Sweet. So kia ora tātou everyone. Ko maua o te moanga, ko Waikato te awa, no toranga moana aho, ko mystery toko whānau, ko Harshul toko engwa. Hi everyone, my name is Harshul, and as Brian mentioned, I am from Microsoft New Zealand, so located in the Auckland office currently, but my family is from Tauranga and I have origins from the Waikato. My family name, what I said there, my whānau name is Mystery, and my first name is Harshul. Thank you all for jumping on. I know it's an afternoon after lunch here in New Zealand, or just prepping up to lunch in Australia. So great to see you all. And I'm here to talk to you about what the whole Viva Suite looks like. So let me go through to the next slide here. So as I mentioned, I'm part of the modern work team, which is all things to do with Microsoft 365, but my passion lies within what that Viva Suite looks like, or what that employee experience suite looks like. So I'm new to technology, the tech sector, but to me, it's one of the most important things is having that employee experience that is really good, especially passing on from this. Now that it looks like in the distance, the pandemic we just went through. I'm hoping it stays in the distance. I don't want anything like that, but it is great to have new products like this come out, which Microsoft is looking to invest a lot more into. So I'm going to go through each individual parts of this at a very high level. But basically how it kicks off is that Viva Connections piece, which is that overarching app that sits in your Microsoft Teams. And you currently with your Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 license have access to some free things that you can turn on right now. And in my next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. But for now, I'm just going to go through what each part of this looks like. So Viva Connections is what we call our landing page or the home page. And what that has is our dashboard and our access to all these apps that you see. So the Viva Engage, Amplify, Insights, Pulse, Goals, Topics, and Learning. But our whole Viva Suite sits within 4 pillars, which is the connection, insight, purpose, and growth pillar. So I just wanted to quickly go through what each one of these pillars look like, because this is very new that was just announced in our Ignite piece. So what is connection? So as I mentioned, we've just come off our pandemic. And this pandemic was a big one. We were in lockdown in New Zealand for basically a year, what it seems like. And what it meant was when you work from home, I started working my first job, and it was the pandemic time. So for me, it was important to have that community base within my org because I didn't know anyone. So this is where Viva Engage, or what was formerly known as Yammer, came in very handy. This is a community platform that helps you as an organization share and build that community within your organization as a whole. You can use this, and how we use it within Microsoft is to share, whether it be just kind of personal stories, and we can all comment and create that community through the comments and interact with one another, which is really awesome to have, especially when you're working from home or when you don't get to have that face-to-face. Next, we have Viva Amplify. So Viva Amplify, I must note, is coming out at the end of this year. So it is currently in very early stages of private preview. But basically what this does is Microsoft has seen how important it is to send out these comms. But it's difficult to send out comms because you have to either post it on your email, your Teams channel, your Yammer, or all different sort of platforms you might have. And what Viva Amplify does is it brings that all in within one app to help comms teams or marketing teams or any manager spread those comms in a very easy way, as you're able to just amplify or set it all up within one app. So that's the connection pillar. The next pillar is what we call the insights pillar, which is what I like to think of as the 2 ears. So what I mean by 2 ears, it's about the analytics, but also hearing what your employees are actually going through. So the analytics piece is what we call Viva Insights, or formerly known as My Analytics. But Viva Insights is something that has grown so big within the last few years that it is not just analytics. It provides those solutions or recommendations to help you as an organization improve your employee experience. So what it does is it uses your back-end Microsoft 365 foundation, so whether that be Word, Outlook, or anything like that, Teams also, and it helps you understand how many of your workforce is actually going through what we might think of as after hours work, or what we might also think of as, being in too many meetings or not having enough time to focus on your work. So what it does is it uses that data, so you as an individual will be able to see how you're tracking along, but as a manager and a leader, it de-identifies it, meaning security is top of mind, meaning that you will not get to see what each individual is doing, but you get to see what the whole team is doing as a whole. And what you can do there is understand, how is your workforce actually going? And the beauty of this is it's not just providing the analytics, but it also, Microsoft has research in the back end that helps you recommend solutions, that helps you actually understand how you can best improve this. The next thing is we have Viva Pulse, which is a very short survey that managers and leaders can send out. So how I've seen this being used is currently I have a client who had something going on in their workshop. So there was an incident where someone got hurt. They didn't know as managers or leaders how the rest of the org is feeling. So what they did was they sent out a quick Viva Pulse. And what that did was you got to understand, how is everyone feeling? You know, are they feeling anxious? Are they feeling, it's a bit of trauma there? What is going there? We're getting on there. So we get to actually understand how are they actually feeling? And that's what I mean by the other ear, which is how is your workforce as a whole actually feeling? You can look at the data, but you may not actually understand how they're actually feeling. So that's the insight pillar there. It helps improve that productivity, well-being, and provides that actionable insights. Our next piece is the purpose piece, which is our Viva goals, which is going to be synced with li.io, which is helping organizations and people within an org understand how their work is actually contributing to the overall organization goal. So like I mentioned, I work for Microsoft, and that's a whole global beast out there. I don't know what I'm doing today that's going to be contributing to that, but at least through Viva Goals, I'm able to understand visually, I must add, how my work today is actually helping the overall goal of what Microsoft is going towards. So that's the purpose pillar. And the last bit is growth. So as I mentioned, I am new to the tech sector. And for me, there's so much to learn. There's so much going on with AI, ChatGPT, everything going on right now. So how do I learn all this? And that's where we have Viva Topics and Viva Learning. So firstly, Viva Topics is a depository of basically goes through using AI through your information, once again, keeping privacy and security top of mind, and it aggregates it all into these topic cards or topic pages to help you easily find out what is that information. And within certain articles and things, it will actually highlight the word, making it really easy to see what those words actually mean. Lastly, we have Viva Learning. Viva Learning is not an LMS system. It is what I call a return on investment. Organizations have a large bunch of LMS systems out there. And for me, when I come to learning and I get out of an app like Teams and have to go into a browser and actually log into the LMS system, I can get easily distracted. I can go on emails, I can go on Teams chats and message people, and that can distract my learning process. So with Viva Learning, you're bringing all that, aggregating all your LMS systems into Teams, which is where you're spending most of your times currently anyway, and actually making sure that you're able to do all that learning in one platform. And it's beautiful because you can actually even schedule it into your own calendar time. So as I mentioned, that's a high arching over whatever Microsoft Viva is. But I also am going to switch to my next slide. And yes, it is a busy slide, but I just wanted to show you overall what you have access to currently. So this is recorded, as mentioned in the chat by Steph. So you are able to just feel free to go back and actually look at what you have access to. So the gray boxes are all some things that you have access to within your own M365 E3 or E5 license currently. So that's the whole of Viva Connections. That's a bit of Viva Engaged, Viva Insights, a personal insights piece, and Viva Learning, which you have access to the Microsoft Learn, the M365 training licenses, and the top 125 LinkedIn Learning courses. So you can switch that all on the back end, and we're more than happy to help you in that piece as well as Engage Squared and as Microsoft. So as my next step to you all after the session is, if you're keen to hear more about this, feel free to reach out to any one of us, and we can do within Microsoft, we can apply to get a funded workshop. So that could be with Engage Squared, and you can do a workshop and understand what is the next piece on that. And if there's any questions, please feel free to chuck it into the chat. I currently cannot see it, but we will loop back to it at a later stage. But without further ado, I will pass it on to Leah now, who will control the next part of the session. So on to you, Leah.
Kia ora tātou, ko Drakensberg te maunga, ko Vaal River te awa, North South Africa ho, ko Pullen tōku whānau, ko Leah tōku ingoa. Greetings all, I'm Leah Pullen. I'm going to be managing the panel of discussions now with our team. Please feel free to enter any questions within the meeting chat, and we will try get to all of them. If not now, definitely towards the end. So let me begin. Rachel, let's talk about digital employee experience in 2023. What are you seeing today and what challenges are organizations coming to you with?
Thanks, Leah. Firstly, thanks for having me today. I want to talk a little bit about organizations that are coming to us and they're wanting to take more of a structured or a strategic approach with their employee experience. And so the need to evolve the digital employee experience on the back of 2 years of working from home or hybrid working has seen lots of organizations renew their focus on the intranet and the digital tools that they provide their users. But by the same token, we're also seeing pockets in organizations who, out of necessity, are finding their own digital tools. And this means that they're often using unsanctioned or ungoverned third-party tools or apps, otherwise known as shadow IT. I've worked with government organizations who have frontline staff using WhatsApp to hold highly secure and confidential conversations simply because the communication or the collaboration tools provided by their department didn't meet their needs. Some organizations that I work with have seen a significant increase in multiple different tools being used to do the same job across different pockets or teams in their org. So much so that one organization I'm working with at the moment has over 1,400 apps in their ecosystem, which is intense. But security concerns aside, that's a pretty complex and often a difficult employee experience. And it's showing up in things like pulse survey results. And the other major issue we're seeing, Leah, is that we're talking with clients about the challenge of communicating with hybrid working cohorts as well as frontline workers. We often see that employees are reporting feeling disconnected from the organisation and from the culture. Like, how do you create an employee culture with large cohorts that are either working full-time from home or hybrid working or are out on the front line and they rarely sit in front of a computer? How do you keep them up to date with organisational news or goings on without spamming their inbox? We're hearing questions like, how do we create a safe two-way communication channel for formal and informal conversations? And how do we ensure that our teams have things like easy access to the most up-to-date policies and procedures and compliance tools, etc. And so we discuss all of these kind of issues with comms teams, employees, people and culture teams. It's a pretty universal challenge at the moment, I think.
The number of organizations looking to redesign their intranet's digital employee experience strategy has increased substantially over the last 18 months. The appetite to integrate and turn intranets into a digital front door is growing. Can you share some examples of the types of work we're doing with organizations to address this? What's some of the thinking behind the projects that we are delivering?
Yeah, it's a good point that you make, Leah. Employees' expectations of the digital tools that their organisation provides them have changed in the last few years. And most organisations have really struggled to keep up. And the idea of this single front door to what is often a really complex digital landscape is a significant challenge, and it's really hard to get right. And this has led to a real surge in orgs who are taking an employee experience research-led approach to their digital workplace strategy projects. So they're really diving deeply into understanding not only what is their current state with their 1,400 shadow IT apps, but also what is the future state requirements. And they're undertaking things like focus groups and listening labs and staff surveys so that they really get down deep and understand, which gives their project teams the ability to leverage a deep understanding of the employee experience and then use this to guide their strategic initiatives. And I'm going to give you 2 examples of some rather large recent engagements that I've been part of. And a really good one of those is Deloitte Australia. We undertook a project with Deloitte late last year to implement a modern SharePoint Online intranet using Viva connections. Deloitte had this really strong view that it had to be a user research-led discovery, and the outputs of that research underpinned the intranet requirements. And we did things like user persona top tasks, and we made sure that the homepage and the navigation and the Viva Connections dashboard helped to achieve those top tasks. Additionally, this team was really cognizant of analysis paralysis They were very clear in their acknowledgement that perfection over progress would get in their way, and that if we let that happen, we might never implement a solution. And so instead we took an MVP approach to the homepage and Viva Connections dashboard, with a view to iterating it based on user feedback and continued and ongoing user research. The idea of a one and done intranet project is a thing of the past, and most organisations are taking a product management approach. The other example that I want to talk about really quickly is ANZ. We were doing a big intranet project with them back in 2019, and it got put on hold for various reasons, and the work restarted in 2022. And as they were doing that, they realised that the designs and the dev that we'd done back in 2019 no longer resonated with their users. And so they undertook a user research project. And on the back of the results, they've completely redesigned the homepage and actually redone some work to really put the employee experience first. And I love that clients are putting that at the top of mind, because they get a better solution, and it also has a positive impact on the change management effort associated with the technological change. Sorry, Leah, I could talk all day about this stuff.
So what role does Viva Suite play in this story?
Well, I think it plays the lead role, because it's designed to meet different parts of the employee experience. So, you know, Harshal was talking about the connection, he was talking about analytics, he was talking about knowledge management. And for me, the Viva Connections dashboard feels like the no-brainer of the entire suite, because as Harshal said, it's already included in SharePoint licenses, and it brings your intranet, your communications, your culture, and your corporate information like policies into teams where people are doing the work. And it feels like a natural evolution of SharePoint and Teams. Just very quickly before I hand over to somebody else, some clients that have recently rolled out Viva Connections dashboard, and I just want to bring up a couple. There's an organisation in Australia called The Star, and they're a very large entertainment and hospitality organisation, and they have over 8,500 users, and 70% of those are frontline staff like hospitality, bartenders, security, etc. And they were really struggling to provide a mobile digital experience for those staff. So they had actually designed their own custom app. They were supporting it, they were hosting it. It was quite a heavy support burden. And so they implemented Viva Connections with our help, as well as Viva Engage. So the dashboard included personalised cards for those frontline staff, making it easier for them to connect back to the organisational news. But more importantly, it made it easy for them to manage their rosters, because it was integrated with that third-party system. The Star saw an additional 3,000 users access the new solution within the first month of its release, and with a total number of over 24,000 visits in total just in the first month. So after rolling out Viva Connections, the Star completely decommissioned their custom app, saving them those hosting costs and those supporting costs, as well as leveraging their existing investment in the Microsoft licenses. And the other client I wanted to refer to briefly is the A2 Milk Company, where we implemented, again, a modern SharePoint intranet with Viva Connections and dashboard. But this was the first time A2 were able to push news and connect the factory workers back to the organisation, because they were able to access the intranet via their mobile and the Teams app. I think what these two examples speak to is the importance of personalisation. The intranet is no longer a one-size-fits-all, and our users' expectations of their digital experience have matured. The intranet is really only part of the equation, although my favourite part, and employees are different in how they consume comms from their company. The old way of going to the intranet is half dead. And so we're looking to things like Viva to bring that intranet and its content and communities to the employee in the flow of their work.
So Rachel, when it comes to connections, what makes it different to an intranet?
I love this question. And in fact, when Viva Connections first came out, there was a bit of I guess, argument out in the market of, well, do we still need an intranet? And my 20 years in the industry tells me that, yes, there will always be a need for an organisational intranet, because your intranet is about connecting your employees to news, events, connections, organisational values, policies. You get the message. Viva Connections, though, is the level up of your intranet. So it's ramping up the volume. It's an additional feather in your intranet hat. It brings your intranet into teams where most of your people are doing their digital-based work anyway. And additionally, it aims to assist you to connect those disparate dots across your digital workplace by making it easier to undertake actions from the intranet homepage in Teams or on your mobile. For me, the power of the dashboard lies in facilitating users to undertake tasks from within the intranet. And so we're really looking to remove or reduce the friction that users feel when they're navigating around their employee experience.
That's amazing. Harshil, when it comes to Viva Connections, what does the current climate look like in New Zealand?
Great question, Leah. So firstly, I just want to address Rachel. I'm also an intranet nut, so this is right up my alleyway. But Leah, just to get back onto your question there. So yes, we have, I mentioned earlier, we just came off a huge pandemic, right? And so and I also mentioned earlier, I started during the pandemic. To me, I was in a disconnect with my colleagues and my managers. And that was actually a common theme that we found within Aotearoa New Zealand and Australia. And what are those things is we actually haven't mentioned it as much here, is that there's a disconnect not within just knowledge workers, which is what we refer to as, you know, in the office workers, but there's also a disconnect with frontline workers, which is those that are on the ground, hands-on. And so what I like to think about the Viva Connections piece is it's not just for those people that are in the office, it's for those in the frontline as well. So for office workers or knowledge workers, you are able to easily communicate with managers and leaders, but also by communication, I mean, yes, you can just send in a chat, but also what I'm meaning there is the Yammer piece. But what I also love about it is what Rachel mentioned, that dashboard piece, because for us office workers, you're able to easily just go to Viva Connections, look at the dashboard, and you mentioned the personalization piece there. What that does is it's each group, for example, marketing, finance, or anyone like that, can have their own personalized dashboard. So what is important to them? Whereas, for example, finance might have inventory as a very important piece. You can have a Power BI report right into that dashboard that you can click on. And for frontline workers, we know that they might not be equipped with a computer. They might not be equipped with a tablet. They might just have a mobile phone, or they may have a tablet, whatever that might be. Viva Connections has an app. And what we want to do is to reduce that access to, we don't want them to continuously download new apps or whatever to do their jobs. Whereas within Viva Connections, you can put everything into a frontline worker dashboard. Whether that be, I've seen it work in a way, for example, if they're doing for real estate, which is a territory that I'm a part of, we're creating the Viva Connections dashboard piece in a way that a real estate worker can actually just click on the dashboard and it will take them to the inspection tool. And they can actually just take those photos and upload it in just one app without actually having to go into other apps. So that's how I see the landscape moving, is it's catering catering towards those office workers, but also those frontline workers. And it's just a beauty because it's all within one app. So pass it back to you, Leah, on that one. Thank you for that question.
Harshil, I see that Mark has posted a question in the chat, and I think it would be good to address now. So with regards to insights, you mentioned mood. As most companies have embedded these well-being pillars post-COVID, what kind of information could be made available to your more senior leadership team to allow them to make impactful choices? Do you have an example of a customer story?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And more than happy to kind of bring this up in another conversation as well. But for me, it's it's been amazing to see how many organizations are now bringing this well-being piece front of mind. And that insight piece is becoming even more important because it's that data piece, right, where you're able to understand in the back end, how is everyone working? You can ask them up front, but also the back end information is really crucial. So to senior leadership teams, the great thing is that this Viva Insights tool actually provides a whole lot of data. I can't justify it without having to go into a demo and actually show you all of that piece. But basically what it does is it shows you as an organization whole or as a senior leader to understand what is that overtime work? What is that flex? Are people working in the weekends? Are people actually working, in odd hours? Are people logging in at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. in the morning to do their work? It's there for the senior leaders to understand what can they do within their org to help cater to that overall well-being of their organization. Some people might, although the data shows, people are logging in late or late at night, that might be working perfectly for them because it's that flexibility that parents or caregivers really need. And so for us, that senior leadership team is able to understand that data. And a really good plug there is that for HR leads, you're able to just easily download all this information. We have create a PowerPoint sort of tab on top that you can click on, and it's easy to present as well to the rest of the team. But for me here, it's that key piece is that understanding how is everyone doing using data, how is everyone actually working in your workforce, and able to understand how can you cater to that. For us within Microsoft and within Microsoft New Zealand, I can't unfortunately give any customer stories out there, but I'll talk about Microsoft New Zealand here. We understood during this COVID period, the senior leadership team understood that we're working odd hours, right? We're logging in at 10 p.m., working till 1 a.m., whatever that might be. And they were concerned because they were like, man, Harsh's, oh no, actually, they can't see Harsh's logging in. What I'm saying here is they can see that teams are logging in late. But to them, it was also able to, they were able to understand, yes, they're logging in late, but how are they actually feeling? And we were feeling as an organization quite happy because we have that flexibility. And what they did with that was they didn't have to, send out emails out to teams and the whole organization to say, guys, we're all working over, overtime piece. They actually were thinking about us in another way. They were thinking about, okay, if Harshal is working late here, how can we provide him with that kind of a caregiving package or whatever that might look like to help him in those late night working. So actually they sent us all as an organization, they sent us a office package, meaning, you have your light at a late night working, because we know that the laptop screen can have strain on your eyes. So they sent us a light, they sent us a mouse pad and all those sort of things that instead of saying, look, don't work those flexible hours or those late night hours, they're actually helping us work that time and actually make sure that we're able to work it in a way that we feel comfortable as well. So I hope that answers your question there, Mark. I would love to take that on in a further discussion, but thanks for the question. And thanks, Leah, once again.
Harshal, thank you so much. And Mark, thank you for your question. We have posted a client story in the meeting chat. Brian, how does Viva tie back to the employee well-being and investments made by an organization for addressing these challenges?
Attack of the mute. Great question, Leah. And if we step back a bit, because we've been talking really in depth of some really great topics in this space. If we step back and again we reflect on recent events, it's shown that from a well-being perspective, organizations, we've known a lot in the past around what is considered a customer experience and a client experience, but we haven't really spent as much time talking about what an employee experience looks like. And the fact is, the recent events have shone a really strong light into that space. We can't just simply ignore that, and it's a really valuable part of what organizations do in terms of how they plan and design their work in the short term as well as the longer term. So it's really important from around retention, attraction, and engagement for the staff, and it's really fundamental, and ultimately a very strong key to organizational success. And like I said, it goes beyond day-to-day productivity. It's more of a longer-term view, and that's where forward-thinking organizations are investing in that space. If you look at some of the Gartner 2023 trends, all nine of them are around employee well-being. There's a huge push and a huge relevance to this topic around quiet hiring, around hybrid flexibility that Harshal's been talking on, but it's important of it reaching the front lines, and it's not just about the ivory towers getting the flexibility, so to speak. There's a squeeze in terms of competing leaders and employee expectations, and managers need support. And if you look at how Viva Insights help reinforce and actually support those conversations. Like, you know how difficult it is for a manager to say, how are you doing? Versus a manager being able to have an informed and educated conversation with their team saying, hey, this is the stats coming through for our organization. These are the stats globally, and this is the stats for our particular team. Let's look at what is working for us and what's not, and we can start edging off some of those difficult pain points. Having that information in front of you to have those informed conversations and having a leading approach in terms of adjustment of work practices is so valuable. In things like pursuit of non-traditional candidates to expand talent pipelines is another key trend. Organizations pushing around a more diverse and inclusive workforce, and the growing pushback of that, and then understanding and handling employee experience through that. Having personal employees create new data risks, the Gen Z skills gap, and no offense to all those Gen Zers out there, in terms of there's literally a Gartner trend around the challenge of the workforce kind of social erosion element of how should people work now? Some people have entered the workforce without even necessarily in a physical sense. How does that we can't ignore that as organizations. So Viva is a key enabler in investing in employee engagement. There are three key trends around, three key pillars typically around employee engagement and employee experiences: the digital, the physical, and the cultural. And obviously we're focusing quite significantly in and around the digital side of that pillar. And then obviously there are physical elements to employee experience, and there are also quite very, very important cultural elements. But obviously all three of them play together, and digital is a key enabler of the cultural element of that. And done well, it sits alongside the physical side of it. And so Microsoft goes quite direct to try to address these challenges via Viva. Individually, again, we've covered a few examples here: crafting to help more easily connect with others and information around you, stay informed and engaged, accelerate your learning with new skills, balance your time, give more time to focus and recharge. That's for individual benefits. Organizationally, you're talking about fostering a new culture for support of employees. Even when you're not physically together with colleagues, you always feel a strong connection to collective goals, as with Viva goals, and be able to more accessibly and leverage the knowledge and connections of the work community to get things done, in Viva topics. Feeling invested in the career growth and well-being. Now, there's so much inside of that package. You often start to question, where do you start? And if you think about it, these are not Dynamics 365 style solutions that address key business functional pillars. One of the examples that Harshal pulled was around finance and inventory. And that's a really great kind of like solid and concrete business challenge in front of us. But this is a more cross-functional employee and organizational cultural challenge and opportunity. So, if you step back, and this is a little bit of our own individual perspective, is that you could Microsoft, I would argue, Microsoft doesn't want to necessarily kind of push all of this just directly into the standard M36 package, because some people could step back and go, this looks like a bunch of, I don't need this. I just need the core package of M365. But there are organizations that definitely need this type of added benefit, and I can see why Microsoft has kind of sectionalized in the service package the way they have, as well as being able to give good lead-ins through Viva connections around that are part of E3 and E5 licensing. Some of the challenge here is organizations need to be able to take the challenge forward. If you look at how organizations are going to be addressing this, they can't. The challenge for leadership is to say, well, how can we address this in a way that makes sense? Because there's a lot of elements to this. How do we break it down? And there are a lot of core business case opportunities within that space to try to address that. And so the challenge is to be able to take those and aggregate them together. Look, find where those opportunities are within the organization. And that's the challenge, because technology evolves, and strategic approach that organizations take need to evolve with it. And some of the challenge there is to be able to identify how that technology is shifting, connect that with organizational strategic goals, and also to be able to then say, there are the opportunities for us in this new technology space. Or secondly, oh, the technology is adjusting, it's moving at rapid pace. Let's redefine where our strategic direction is as an organization, and look to take opportunity where we see it in front of us. And that's both the challenge and opportunity to leadership within organizations. And that's not just a simple case of one particular set of stakeholders. That's quite a wide, diverse set of stakeholders, and quite a varied business case. And I think we're going to talk about also how do we strategically try and target that, and that's going to be a little bit of a follow-on in terms of our conversation there. So it's being able to pull all of those threads together to show how we can reinvest back into our employee well-being. So hopefully that answers your question there, Leah, and I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to bounce back to Rachel. Rachel, so do people start from a strategic perspective? Can you share your top 3 tips for aligning your intranet or platforms like Viva with your broader digital workplace strategy?
Yeah, I firmly believe that having a plan, well, if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. I know it's a cliche, but in this case, given the size of the digital workplace and the potentially overwhelming task, being strategic and eating that elephant one bite at a time is absolutely the best way to go. And I think if I was going to give you 3 tips, it would be start with combining a top-down and bottom-up approach. So by that, I mean engage with your senior leaders about the digital employee experience, and you will often find that you're pushing against an open door. They want to find ways to improve the digital experience. It often will lead to things like efficiency increases and productivity improvements, and general employee satisfaction going up. But at the same time as you're engaging those senior leaders, spend time with your key staff. Particularly those in the frontline environment, although I wouldn't limit it just to those. Understand their expectation and priorities. People expect a really sexy digital workplace now. They want the bells and whistles. And I think that Viva, with both the seated and premium features, can actually meet the expectations of those whistles to about 90%. And I feel like that's pretty good. The second tip I would give you is to focus on delivering business value that aligns with your organizational strategy and meets real-world staff needs. So really aligning the strategic initiatives with what we really can realize as benefits. And lastly is to always come back to the human in the picture. We're doing all of this to make life better for the humans in our lives. So it's not just about the technology. If you can impact someone's life at work in a positive way, I think you're halfway to success. Those are my top 3 tips, Leah.
Thank you, Rachel. And with this in mind, Harshal, what is coming on the M365 Viva roadmap that will enhance the value proposition of intranets?
Yeah, great question. By the way, Rachel, I absolutely love that piece about, it's about not just the tech, it's about how you're able to use it in a way that's showing your employees or anyone within your org how much you actually can, making it easier for them, right, at the end of the day. So yeah, Leah, I think we've covered a whole bunch of stuff in today's session, and in my starting piece, I did talk a lot about what the overall suite looks like. In terms of a roadmap, the Viva suite it's going to carry on continuing to grow, right? You may have heard the announcements of us recently acquiring, well, not so recent, maybe a year ago, Glint, which has now been put into our Viva Pulse. And then ally.io, which will be pulled into the Viva goals piece. So things like that will continuously happen, where Viva will grow and it will adapt with other organizations, and kind of create that collab piece where we can all stay within teams, first of all, within the app, but also grow what it looks like to have more tools at our fingertips to grow that well-being piece, or to help our day-to-day jobs make it a lot easier. So as I mentioned, we've got everything within Teams. We've got everything there for you to access, but that personalization piece that Rachel has been hammering home is really key here. So with that Viva Connections and that intranet piece, the Viva Connections will become more personalized for each individual or each group of an organization. So things like, we want to make sure that an organization as a whole has a personalized intranet, right? So you can put your logo on the left-hand side of your Teams app. So that will be more personalized. You can have everything branded in your organization as a whole. So creating that piece and making it more individual and making it more personalized to your org is one key piece. The next piece, I guess, is that Viva Connections homepage has actually evolutionized into into a bigger piece. It's become that homepage where when a user in the morning turns on their laptop and turns on Teams, the first thing that can pop up and will pop up is your Viva Connections piece. And that has, at the top, you'll have easy access to Viva Insights, Viva Learning, and Viva Goals, and whatever it might be. And then the dashboard as well that we've been talking about. It's all right there and making it really easy for each individual. So that dashboard and that homepage will continuously grow. And then that other tab, which is the feeds tab, will grow within the Viva Engage piece. So it's exciting times because we're going to get a whole bunch of stuff coming in, and that analytical view will be really key as well to understand specifically when it comes to content being shared within an organization, what is interacting best with your org as a whole. You want to know that, are people loving more, for example, well-being tips? I know within Microsoft during that lockdown period, we had people sharing cooking skills or even cooking videos or tips. And that was something that people really loved because that's, we love baking, we love cooking. So for us, it's about what can we do as an org and what are people actually liking to see out there. So that's a little bit more the social aspect, but actually seeing how content is delivered. Is it better in a reading form or video? You can actually see that through your intranet and through Viva Connections, is to understand what are people actually resonating with. But great question, and more than happy to kind of go into that piece. It will take me I can go over this next 10, 11 minutes talking about it, but I think at the end of the day, it's about how can we as Engage Squared and Microsoft help you start and get on this journey. I know there's a question, Leah, in the chat that you probably want to address to everyone, but the thing is, what advice would I have? I've just jumped the gun here, but what advice would I have is to reach out to us. Reach out to us if you want to even hear more about what is Viva and what is it, how can it help you, because we can jump on a call, we can talk a lot more about it and actually make it more tailored and help you create that piece as well. So I'll pass it back to you, Leah, the virtual microphone, and thank you once again for everything today.
Thank you too. So Claudia has posted a question, is, where do you start? How do you get involved with something, to start with? So obviously, yes, connect with your advisors and Microsoft and your partners, but, from a business point of view, how would you, what advice would you give, Harshal?
So my advice would be, yes, and you can do those workshops, you can reach out to us, but my next advice would be, just go in the back end and you already have access to the Viva Connections piece. You already have access to the personal insights, the learning piece. See what it looks like. Actually have a play around with it. See the data it pulls through. For me personally, I love that free version because it has that daily emails that come in through Viva Insights, and it's personally saved me so many times because I am criminal at writing those emails. I'll get back to you by the end of the week, and then the whole week gets busy, and then Viva Insights has saved me because it sends that email at the end, at the end of the week saying, Harsh, you actually have to reply to this person, go out and do it. So it does help me in that piece. So I think my greatest advice is go in that back in and turn it on, and actually probably my next thing would be to look at your Azure Active Directory as well and create those groups, because that will come in very handy when it comes to creating your Viva Connections piece, is having that AAD really accurate and crisp, and we're more than happy to help you in that piece as well. But I'll pass it on to Brian if he has any advice too.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty useful segue as well, Leah and Harshal, to probably push through to our final part of the session today, because in a lot of ways, the challenge is to evolve it and to dive into it and actually get some real world experience and real world hands-on understanding about not just what it means, but also what it means to us and what are some real world examples that we can be using for this. And that's really, really valuable, really, really critical. And the easiest way to do it is to just have a chat with us. We're really keen to help walk you through it. We'll sit down with you and we can help explain what all the different pieces mean. Use some real live examples with your own organization to help bring life to it and put flesh on those bones. And the next step from that is to actually start looking at a build intent workshops and start to actually try to systematically deal with a single pillar and bring in the right stakeholders into the room and say, here is how the technology works. Here are some of our real world examples that we have to deal with. What would that look like in terms of rubber on the road as a starting point? Because the importance is to be able to start building that real on the ground value that you can actually achieve inside of your organization using the Viva suite. And that has only you can really do that when we start walking through with yourselves. So that's what we're here for. Harshal is ever so kind to help fund us on some of those conversations as well. So that always helps with that part. Thank you very much, Harshal. Appreciate that. As well as, we're always here to have a chat. We're always keen to talk about it. We're massive fans of the Viva suite. And so we're always happy to just to walk people through. I didn't quite understand that particular element of it. In terms of taking us through, Steph has really helpfully Steph has really helpfully put through some links through there. We're going to be wrapping the session up, and by the end of today, we'll be posting and sending on to everyone through the registration links to this webinar, links to taking steps forward in terms of getting in touch with us and taking the next steps and learning more about how the Viva suite can help you. So thank you very much for everyone for coming. Tēnā koutou. Look forward to that email in your inbox, hopefully by the end of today. And we look forward to talking with you guys more in the future. Just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you to all of the speakers as well. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Harshal. And thank you, Leah, for keeping us under control. And thank you everyone else for enjoying and joining and hopefully enjoying the session today. Thank you very, very much. And just want to say tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for joining us. To our New Zealand attendees and to our Australian attendees, it's been wonderful speaking with you all. And I don't think anyone would mind taking 5 minutes back in their day either. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed the session and got value out of it. And very good, guys. And we'll leave you at that. And thank you very much for all attending. Much appreciated.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.